Close your eyes for a moment, clear your mind, and let all the noise, stress, and problems of your current world completely fade away. Imagine you are a warrior, someone who has spent most of your life chasing battles, revenge, and distant horizons. Every single challenge you have faced in the past has only sharpened your resolve, but the long journey is finally over, and the path ahead now belongs entirely to your peace. After years of crossing cold, treacherous seas and wandering through unknown, violent lands, you have finally arrived in a place of total sanctuary, Vinland. The afternoon sun hangs low over the edge of the world, casting a long, unbroken sheet of pale gold across the endless waters of the Western Sea. There is a vastness here that defies the mind, a space so wide and uncluttered that it feels as though the earth itself has finally run out of things to say. For a man who has spent the greater part of his life measuring the horizon in lengths of iron, counting the leagues by the steady, exhausting pull of an oar through freezing spray, or scanning the tree line for the sudden, telltale glint of a hidden spear tip, this silence is almost heavy. It presses against your senses not with a threat, but with an unfamiliar weight of total safety. The air carries the clean, sharp scent of salt water mixed with the sweet, sun-warmed fragrance of wild earth and crushed green stalks. It is a gentle wind that moves across this open meadow, a wind that does not bite or carry the bitter chill of the northern fjords. It does not smell of smoke or ash or the metallic tang of blood that used to linger in your nostrils for days after a shield wall had finally collapsed. It is just wind. Simple, clean, and completely indifferent to the strivings of men. Step by step, your boots sink into the thick, tangled carpet of the meadow. For years, every single step you took on unfamiliar soil was an act of intense calculation. You learned to place your weight carefully, avoiding the dry twig that might snap and give away your position, staying clear of the loose stones that could slide down a hillside under the weight of armor, always keeping your knees slightly bent, ready to spring forward or cast your weight behind a shield at the first sound of a drawn bowstring. But here, the ground demands absolutely nothing from you. It is soft, forgiving, and deep. The tall, golden stalks of grass rise up to meet your waist, brushing against your hands with a dry, rhythmic whisper that sounds like the gentle breathing of a world at rest. Your hands, wide and heavily calloused from decades of gripping coarse wooden hilts and pulling taut leather reins until the knuckles bled, hang loosely at your sides. There is no iron in them today. Your fingers do not curl out of habit around a pommel. They do not twitch with the restless, anxious energy of a man waiting for an ambush. They are entirely empty, catching the tops of the seed heads as you walk, letting the soft grains slide between the scars on your palms. It is a cadence that has existed since the beginning of time, entirely unaffected by the rise and fall of kings, the burning of villages, or the desperate, short-lived fury of mortal wars. It is not the superficial tiredness that follows a long day of physical labor, but the deep, generational fatigue of a soul that has been running, fighting, and defending itself since the days of its youth. It is the weight of a lifetime spent under the assumption that the world is an arena where one must either conquer or be destroyed. Slowly, with a deliberateness that feels almost like a sacred ritual, you begin to lower yourself down into the grass. In the past, lying down on the earth was always a temporary, guarded necessity. You lay in the dirt with your boots still laced tight, your hand resting flat against the grip of your blade, your ears strained through the darkness to catch the distant barking of a dog or the heavy, rhythmic tread of a night watchman. You lay down knowing that the morning would bring another march, another wall to breach, or another horizon to chase in search of an elusive vengeance that never quite filled the void inside. But today, your descent is total. You let your knees bend, letting the earth take your weight without a fight. The heavy, dark fabric of your cloak spreads out beneath you like a shadow, settling into the damp, green hollows of the soil. You lie flat on your back, stretching your legs out into the golden stalks, and let your arms fall away from your body, palms facing upward toward the sky. As your head settles into the cushion of wild clover, the tall grass instantly closes over you. The horizon vanishes, the sea is hidden from view, and your entire world shrinks down to the immediate protective circle of the meadow. The long, slender blades of grass arch over your face like the vaulted ceiling of some ancient, peaceful hall, filtering the bright afternoon light into a soft, shimmering screen of green and gold. For a moment, the sensation of the ground pressing against your shoulder blades brings a fleeting memory of the heavy iron chainmail that used to bind your chest, the constricting, cold embrace of metal that protected your ribs but never allowed your lungs to fully expand. Now, without the iron, your chest rises and falls with a freedom that feels almost lightheaded. The air moves deeply into your lungs, filling you with the scent of the soil, grounding you in the absolute stillness of this present moment. Above the swaying tips of the grass, the sky stretches out in a flawless, pale dome of twilight blue, completely clear of the burdens you used to carry. The stillness in your body grows deeper now, settling into your bones like a slow, quiet tide. Under the golden canopy of the tall grass, your world is made entirely of simple sounds and physical feelings. The biggest sound you hear is the wind. It is a large, steady current of air that moves across the open plains of Vinland, coming directly from the great Western Ocean. This wind does not arrive in sharp, angry gusts. It does not make you lift your arms to shield your eyes or brace your feet against the dirt. Instead, it travels in long, continuous waves. It sounds like the deep, slow breathing of the earth itself. As it passes over the high cliffside, it hits the millions of dry grass stalks above your face. This creates a beautiful, soft murmur that never stops. This sound completely fills the air above you. It is like a thick wall of soft noise that shuts out the rest of the world, wrapping the entire field in a private space of absolute quiet. Through the steady rush of the grass, you can hear the deeper, slow pulse of the ocean below the cliff. The water is far down, so the sound loses its harsh, crashing edge. It leaves only a low, heavy thud as the waves hit the old stone foundations of the land. Each time a wave breaks, a distant, muffled boom vibrates softly through the ground. It is a pulse that you can actually feel in your spine as much as you hear it in your ears. After every impact, there is the long, drawn-out sound of the water sliding backward. It is a rushing, scraping sigh of millions of tiny pebbles and loose foam moving back down the rocks into the deep belly of the sea. This rhythm is entirely unhurried. It is a slow, eternal heartbeat that has stayed exactly the same for thousands of years. There is no hurry in the tide, no anger, and no ambition. It simply flows out and pulls back, repeating its massive, soothing cycle over and over again. This steady movement invites your mind to drop its own worries and match the slow heartbeat of the sea. As your hearing expands, your highly trained instincts begin to look at the environment around you. For decades, your body had to learn a deep vigilance. Your ears were your primary guards, working constantly to keep you alive. In the dark forests of your old home, a sudden silence among the birds meant a scout was hiding in the bushes. A sharp crack of wood in the dead of night meant an enemy was walking toward your camp. The heavy, rhythmic thud of distant earth meant horses were on the march. Every single sound was checked for danger, processed by fear, and answered by your hand tightening around a sword hilt. You were always ready for a fight, always waiting for the next attack, and always listening for the sound of trouble. Your mind never truly rested because the world around you was always full of threats and sudden violence. But out here in this quiet meadow, your ears find a completely different answer. The birds high up in the blue sky do not cry out in alarm. Their quiet, lonely calls are long and lazy as they float on the warm air without any fear. The wind does not carry the sound of snapping twigs or the metal ring of armor shifting in an ambush. It carries only the clean smell of salt and green plants. The air is completely clear of any human danger. This knowledge that there is absolutely nothing to guard against settles into the center of your chest. Your ears no longer strain to catch what lies beyond the hill. They simply let the sound of the wind wash over them, accepting it as a safe home rather than a place of war. The old need to listen for danger dissolves entirely. The world is not hunting for you today. The land is not fighting you. You are completely allowed to disappear into the background, to become as still as a single stone resting at the root of the grass. You are safe here, completely safe, and there is no one coming to disturb this peace. The ground under your back no longer feels like a hard obstacle, but a cradle that actively lifts you up. The patches of sunlight that filter through the grass continue their slow, hypnotic dance across your closed eyelids, creating a warm, shifting pattern of soft orange and red light. This heat is constant, acting like a steady, warm hand pressing down on your chest, encouraging your lungs to expand even further. Each breath becomes a deliberate act of freedom, drawing in the cool salt air from the ocean, letting it move through a body that has survived many hard winters, and releasing it back into the meadow as a long, quiet sigh. There is nowhere else you need to go. There is no destination waiting on a map, no horizon that must be crossed before the night falls, and no king waiting for your report. The entire idea of a destination has ceased to exist. You do not have to move. You do not have to plan. You do not have to worry about what comes next. The past, with all its long miles of rowing, its blood-soaked mud, and its freezing watches under a bitter winter sky, cannot find a place in this warm, golden air. The memory of old wars and cold seas begins to drift away, losing its power over you. The future, with all its worries and questions, is completely unimportant right now. The only true reality is the immediate physical experience of this meadow. The world around you is completely at rest, and you are allowed to rest with it. You simply lie there, letting the minutes slide past like water over smooth river stones, entirely safe in the now. Your breathing matches the slow waves of the ocean, and your mind becomes as clear and quiet as the empty blue sky above you. The steady sound of the wind keeps moving through the tall grass, and the slow, heavy thud of the ocean continues far below the cliff. As you lie there, completely still, your attention slowly moves away from the sky and turns inward. You bring your hands up, lifting them slightly above the soft green clover, and bring them into your line of sight. You look at them closely. These are your hands, the physical tools that have carried you through every single year of your long life. They are wide, heavy, and covered in thick, rough callus. As you hold them up against the pale blue sky, the warm afternoon sun hits them directly, shining a bright light on every line, every mark, and every ridge on your skin. These hands look old, worn down by decades of hard work, long journeys, and constant survival. They look like the hands of a man who has lived through 1,000 storms, a man who has spent more time fighting the elements and the world than resting in the quiet. When you look closely, you can see the stories of your past written into the very skin of your palms. There are long, pale scars running across your knuckles and down the sides of your fingers. Some of these marks came from the rough, coarse ropes of longships, earned while pulling with all your might against the freezing, heavy waves of the northern seas. Other scars are deep and jagged, left behind by the sharp edges of iron blades, the splintered wood of broken shields, and the cold metal of armor during the frantic chaos of old battles. For a lifetime, these hands were always tightly clenched. They wrapped around heavy wooden hilts until the skin bled. They held onto leather reins with an anxious, desperate grip, and they were always ready to turn into heavy fists at the slightest sign of danger. Your fingers used to twitch out of habit, constantly searching for the cold comfort of a weapon, always waiting for the next threat to appear from the dark tree line. But today, as you look at them in this quiet Vinland meadow, a strange and beautiful transformation happens. Your fingers do not curl into a fist. They do not reach out for iron, because there is no iron here to hold. For the first time in your memory, your hands are entirely, completely empty. There is no weapon to carry, no shield to lift, and no enemy to strike down. Slowly, you let your arms sink back down to the ground, letting your hands drop heavily into the soft, cool dirt at your sides. Your fingers relax completely, spreading out loose and open against the earth. The tall stalks of golden grass brush gently against your open palms, and the tiny, soft seeds slide smoothly between your scarred fingers. It feels incredibly strange to have empty hands. It feels heavy, but it is a weight of profound relief. The old, restless energy that used to live in your muscles begins to drain out, flowing directly into the soil beneath you. Looking at these open hands, your past life begins to feel incredibly far away. The memories of the old country, the shouting of chieftains, the burning fields, and the long miles of rowing through dark water feel like a story that belongs to a completely different person altogether. It is as if you are looking back at the life of an ancient ancestor rather than your own youth. The angry young warrior who used to use these hands to take lives and fight for glory seems like a ghost, a shadow passing through a distant forest. That person was always running, always angry, and always trying to prove his strength to a world that did not care. But out here, in the middle of this vast, silent sanctuary, that anger has no place to rest. The land does not ask you to prove your strength. The grass does not care about your reputation or the names of the men you have defeated in battle. The earth simply accepts your open hands exactly as they are today. As your hands sink deeper into the warm dirt, the feeling of peace spreads from your fingers all the way up your arms and into your shoulders. The thick callus on your skin, which were once built to protect you from the friction of war, now feel like simple badges of survival. They are proof that you went through the fire and came out the other side alive. You do not need to hide your scars, and you do not need to use them to fight anymore. Your hands are allowed to be weak today, they are allowed to be tired, and they are allowed to rest. You let the fingers open even wider, catching the warm heat of the sun in your palms, turning them into vessels that only receive the peace of the present moment instead of taking things by force. The strength that remains in your body is no longer a tool for destruction, but a quiet, solid anchor that keeps you connected to the safety of the ground. You lie there, watching the golden tips of the grass sway around your resting arms. The realization that you are completely done with the iron settles deep into your mind, bringing a quiet clarity that feels as wide as the ocean. Your hands, which did so much difficult work across so many dark years, have finally found their true purpose, to hold nothing at all. They rest open, soft, and entirely relaxed in the cool, wet soil of Vinland. You breathe out a long, slow sigh, letting your fingers sink a little bit deeper into the grass roots, completely giving up the desire to fight, and fully accepting the massive, unshakable comfort of this endless afternoon. As your empty hands rest in the soft soil, the deep quiet of the meadow continues to wrap around you like a heavy, warm blanket. The wind moves through the golden grass above your head, carrying the distant, muffled thud of the ocean waves striking the rocks far below. In this place of total safety, your mind starts to drift backward across the great water. Images of your past life begin to rise to the surface of your thoughts, like old wood floating up from the deep bottom of a calm lake. Memories of the cold northern seas, the freezing winds of the fjords, and the ancient conflicts of your youth appear before you. You remember the dark winter mornings when the spray of the ocean would freeze instantly into a sheet of white ice across the wooden deck of the longship. You remember the exhausting, bone-chilling cold that seemed to live inside your chest for months at a time, a bitter frost that no fire could ever truly warm. You see the shadows of those old days passing through your mind, but something feels completely different now. In the past, whenever you thought about the cold seas or the old battles, your chest would instantly tighten with an immediate surge of heat. Your heart would beat faster, your muscles would tense up, and an old, familiar anger would boil over in your stomach. Your mind would race back to the long nights spent standing guard in the freezing rain, watching the dark tree line for the sudden flash of a hidden torch or the glint of an iron axe. You would feel the phantom weight of your heavy chainmail armor pressing down on your ribs, making it difficult to draw a full breath of clean air. But today, under the warm sun of Vinland, those distant horizons have lost their bite. The memories do not bring any anger, and they do not cause any physical pain. The cold northern winds cannot reach you here. They cannot penetrate the thick, protective wall of these golden amber stalks. The ancient conflicts that used to consume your entire life now look like distant shadows passing over a completely calm landscape. It is like standing safely inside a warm, dry house while watching a terrible winter storm rage through a forest far away on the opposite side of a wide valley. You can see the lightning flash, and you can see the dark clouds twisting in the wind, but the rain cannot touch your skin, and the freezing wind cannot make you shiver. The old battles feel completely hollow now, stripped of their power to hurt or disturb you. The desperate shouting of chieftains, the breaking of shields, and the heavy thud of iron hitting iron have faded down into a quiet whisper, completely swallowed by the massive, eternal sigh of the Western Sea. You realize that you are no longer a part of that violent world. The ocean you crossed was not just a distance on a map, it was a boundary between the life of a restless fighter and the peace of a free man. You continue to look up at the empty blue sky, letting these old memories float past you without trying to stop them or fight them. You do not hold on to them with anger, and you do not try to push them away out of fear. You simply let them pass through your consciousness, watching them go like small, grey clouds drifting across the far edge of the horizon before disappearing into the blue void. The realization of how safe you are right now settles deeper into the muscles of your neck and back. The ground beneath you remains completely steady, a solid, unchanging foundation that supports your weight without asking for anything in return. The warmth of the afternoon sun continues to pour down over your face and chest, melting away the last lingering remnants of the old northern frost that had stayed hidden inside your joints for so many long years. The absolute safety of this present moment acts like a soothing medicine for your tired mind. You are completely separated from the old world by thousands of miles of deep water, and the ghosts of your past have no power to cross that vast ocean. They cannot find you in this hidden meadow, and even if they did, there is nothing here for them to fight. The warrior who carried that heavy burden of anger has laid himself down in the grass and disappeared. There is only the calm rhythm of your breathing, a slow, unhurried rise and fall that matches the ancient cadence of the waves below the cliff. Each time you breathe out, you release a little bit more of the old weight, letting the memory of the cold northern seas dissolve entirely into the warm, rich fragrance of the sun-warmed earth and dry clover around you. The distant horizons are gone, and the past has finally run out of things to say to you. There are no more ships to launch, no more walls to guard, and no more horizons to chase in search of an elusive peace. You are already there. You have arrived at the edge of the world, and the world has given you nothing but silence and safety. You let your eyelids grow heavy, sinking deeper into the soft cushion of wild clover, completely anchored in the warm reality of this endless afternoon, entirely free from the burdens of who you used to be. The warm afternoon sun continues to pour over you, and the slow, rhythmic sound of the waves below the cliff keeps pulsing through the ground. As you lie perfectly still in this quiet Vinland meadow, your thoughts begin to drift to a deeper, more personal part of your past. With the long journey behind you, you begin to think back to the people you once thought you hated. You remember the men you once considered your worst enemies, the ones you felt you needed to defeat at all costs. For decades, the names and faces of these people were burned into your mind like deep, angry scars. You spent countless sleepless nights sitting by dying campfires, staring into the dark woods, thinking about how they had wronged you. You replayed old arguments and old betrayals over and over again in your head. Your chest would tighten, your jaw would clench, and your muscles would shake with a bitter desire for revenge. You truly believed that your life could never have peace until those people were completely broken and defeated by your own hands. But out here, in this vast and silent sanctuary, the fierce heat of that old hatred begins to grow cold. The great distance of the ocean and the slow passage of time have given you a new kind of quiet wisdom. As you look up at the infinite blue sky framed by the golden grass, you begin to see those old enemies clearly for the very first time in your life. With this new clarity, you realize they were not the all-powerful monsters or terrifying villains your anger had made them out to be. Instead, they were just fragile, frightened human beings, caught up in the exact same terrible storms that were driving you. They were men who were also cold, men who were also tired, and men who were desperately trying to survive in a harsh and violent world that did not care about them. You see now that their cruelty and their greed did not come from a place of absolute power, but from a place of deep fear and internal weakness. They were running through the dark just like you were, trying to protect themselves from things they did not understand. This realization acts like a gentle wave of cool water washing over the old, burning coals of your resentment. The heavy grudges you carried across the sea for so many years begin to dissolve, breaking apart like dry clumps of dirt melting into a morning river. The desire to fight them, to judge them, or to punish them completely leaves your body. You understand now that holding on to that hatred was like carrying a sack of heavy, jagged stones everywhere you went. It did not hurt the people who wronged you, it only tore into your own skin and made your own steps heavy and exhausting. Slowly, with every deep breath you take, you let that old sack of stones drop away into the dirt. You let go of the need to be right, and you let go of the need to have the final word in those old conflicts. You forgive them, not because what they did was right, but because you deserve to walk through this beautiful meadow without their shadows dragging behind your heels. The faces of the people you once hated begin to fade away into the soft, warm twilight air of the meadow. They lose their sharp edges, turning into harmless, distant memories that can no longer reach out to hurt you or disturb your quiet mind. The absolute silence of the tall grass around you confirms that those old arguments are completely over. The kings and chieftains who demanded your loyalty and fed your anger are far away, buried under the cold soil of a distant land, entirely powerless in this new territory. There are no blood feuds to settle here, no broken promises to avenge, and no old insults that need to be washed away with violence. The land demands absolutely nothing from you, and it does not ask you to carry the weight of the past into the stillness of tomorrow. You are completely free from the web of old grudges that kept your spirit locked in a constant, exhausting battle for so many long winters. As the old anger leaves your chest, a profound sense of lightness fills the empty space inside you. Your lungs expand fully, drawing in the sweet, clean fragrance of the sun-warmed clover and the salty air of the western sea. You can feel your shoulders sinking even deeper into the soft, forgiving earth, completely supported by a ground that knows nothing of human wars or ancient hatreds. The warmth of the sun acts like a soothing hand on your forehead, smoothing away the deep lines of tension that had been etched into your face by decades of bitter thoughts. The strength that remains in your body is no longer a weapon to be used against others, but a quiet, beautiful shield that protects your own internal peace. You have survived the storms of human fury, and you have finally found the wisdom to see that the greatest victory is simply letting the desire for battle fade away into nothingness. You lie there, completely relaxed, listening to the eternal, comforting murmur of the wind through the amber stalks above your face. The minutes slide past without a sound, and your mind becomes as wide and uncluttered as the vast blue sky overhead. The past has lost its grip on your heart, and the people who once caused you so much pain have turned into mere dust, blown away by the clean, salt-tinged breeze of Vinland. There is no one left to fight, there is no one left to defeat, and there is no one left to hate. You are simply a man resting in the grass, completely safe, entirely whole, and locked in the perfect, unbroken freedom of the present moment. The wind continues its long, slow movement through the high grass, and the deep heartbeat of the ocean continues to sound from the bottom of the cliff. As you lie there, completely safe and separated from the old world, a quiet and profound understanding begins to rise in your mind. It is a soft, clear truth that took you a whole lifetime of wandering, fighting, and suffering to finally see. For decades, you lived under the belief that the world was a dangerous arena where you had to be constantly ready to attack or defend. You thought that everyone you met on the road was a potential threat, and that survival meant keeping your shield raised against the rest of humanity. Your entire identity was built around being a fighter, a man of iron who could withstand any blow and conquer any obstacle. You truly believed that your strength was measured by how many enemies you could overcome and how much pain you could endure without breaking. You believed you always had to be strong, always had to be on guard, and always had to be ready for the next conflict. But here, in the middle of this vast and peaceful meadow, that entire illusion completely shatters. Looking up into the empty, endless dome of the blue sky, a sudden and powerful thought settles into the center of your chest. You realize, with absolute clarity, the grand secret of your life: there is no enemy. No one is born your enemy, and no one out there holds the power to define who you are. The people you fought, the kings you served, and the warriors who crossed blades with you were not part of some grand plan to destroy you. They were just ordinary men, blind and lost in their own internal darkness, fighting shadows that did not exist. The real battle was never against the people outside your shield wall. It was against the deep, roaring fear inside your own mind that told you that you were never safe and that you were never enough just as you were. You were fighting your own terror, your own loneliness, and your own wounds, thinking the danger was coming from the outside world. With this revelation, a massive, crushing weight is instantly lifted away from your spirit. The realization that there is no one left to fight brings a feeling of freedom so large and deep that it makes your eyes grow warm with tears of relief. True strength, you see now, does not lie in the ability to carry a heavy iron sword or to break the bones of another human being. True strength is the absolute, beautiful freedom of putting down the desire to fight altogether. It is the courage to open your hands, to let your weapons slide down into the mud, and to tell the world that you are no longer participating in its violent games. The warrior has finally conquered his own anger, and in doing so, he has won the only victory that actually matters in this life. You do not need to prove anything to anyone anymore. Your worth is not tied to your victories, your scars, or the stories people tell about your name after you are gone. The quiet truth of this moment fills the empty spaces inside your body, warming you from the inside out like a bright morning fire. The entire concept of war dissolves into the warm air of the root layer, turning into meaningless dust that is blown away by the clean breeze from the western sea. You understand now that the land beneath you does not care about borders, crowns, or the flags of chieftains. The earth belongs to no one, and it welcomes everyone who is tired enough to lay down and seek its comfort. You are allowed to be a simple human being today, completely stripped of your titles, your duties, and your heavy reputation. You do not have to be a protector, a leader, or a survivor anymore. You are just a man resting in the tall grass on a quiet afternoon, entirely permitted to exist in a state of total, undemanding stillness. There is no duty left to fulfill, no oath left to keep, and no expectations that you must meet. As this profound clarity settles deep into your bones, your body responds with a wave of absolute physical relaxation. Your chest rises and falls in long, beautiful waves that are completely unhurried, perfectly matching the slow rhythm of the wind through the amber stalks above you. The tiny muscles around your eyes and mouth completely loosen up, erasing the hard, grim expression that you had carried on your face since the days of your youth. The ground beneath your shoulders feels like an old friend, lifting you up and holding you safe within its deep, green embrace. The afternoon light continues to filter through the woven canopy of grass, casting a soft, golden glow across your forehead and chest, a warm blessing of peace that requires no payment and no sacrifice. You are completely safe, and you are completely whole. You lie there in the soft clover, letting the minutes slide past without a single thought of yesterday or tomorrow. The great noise of the world has finally run out of power, leaving only the beautiful, eternal silence of this Vinland sanctuary. The realization that there is no enemy brings an end to the long, exhausting winter of your soul. The battle is over, not because you won or lost, but because you simply chose to walk away from the field and lay down in the sun. You breathe out a long, quiet sigh, letting your mind become as empty and peaceful as the blue sky above, entirely anchored in the deep truth of your own unbroken freedom. The deep, unshakable truth that there is no enemy continues to rest in your heart, warming your body from the inside out. As you lie perfectly still in this quiet Vinland meadow, the focus of your mind shifts gently toward a process of deep, internal healing. For a lifetime, your body and your soul have been treated like a shield wall, taking hit after hit from a harsh and violent world. You have carried the heavy weight of regret, the bitter memory of mistakes made in the heat of youth, and the quiet pain of things you could not save. You often blamed yourself for the losses you suffered, carrying a secret burden of guilt under your armor like a hidden wound that never truly closed. In the past, you did not have the time or the safety to look at these internal injuries. You had to keep moving, keep marching, and keep fighting, pushing the pain down as deep as it would go just to survive until the next morning. But today, under the soft and gentle sun of this endless afternoon, you are finally allowed to look at your own wounds without any judgment. You bring a quiet focus to the concept of self-forgiveness, letting go of the anger you held against yourself for so many long years. As you look up at the vast blue sky through the golden stalks of grass, you begin to see your past actions with a new sense of gentle compassion. You realize that the young warrior who made those mistakes was just a human being trying to find his way through a dark and confusing world. He did the best he could with the limited knowledge and the deep fear he had at the time. You do not need to punish yourself anymore for the choices of a person who no longer exists. The past is done, its ledger is completely closed, and there is no one left who demands a payment for your old transgressions. This realization acts like a soothing, cool medicine pouring over the raw and tender places inside your spirit. The old habits of self-blame and harsh judgment begin to melt away, dissolving into the warm, rich soil beneath your back. You give yourself permission to release the heavy anchors of guilt that have kept your mind dragging through the mud for decades. You understand now that the earth holds you safely today, exactly as you are, without requiring you to fix yourself or undo the history that brought you to this shore. The ground does not ask you to be perfect, and it does not judge the path you walked to find this sanctuary. It simply offers its deep maternal comfort to your tired frame, welcoming you home like a long-lost child who has finally stopped running from the dark. You are allowed to be flawed, you are allowed to be weary, and you are completely allowed to heal. As the internal healing deepens, you feel a physical shift happen across your chest and stomach. The tight, defensive coil of muscles that always braced against the world completely unwinds, letting your belly soften and expand with every slow breath you take. The phantom pain of old injuries, the ache in your ribs from broken bones, the stiffness in your joints from frozen winter marches, seems to pull away from your body, sinking straight down into the dirt below. The earth takes these pains from you without a fight, absorbing your old hurts into its vast, quiet depths and turning them into harmless energy. You feel a profound sense of lightness spreading through your veins, as if your blood is being cleansed by the pure, salt-tinged air coming off the western sea. Every single cell in your body is being given a chance to rest, to rebuild, and to remember what it feels like to live without the constant presence of fear. The scars on your skin and the scars on your soul lose their old, burning sting today. They stop being reminders of pain and defeat, turning instead into quiet badges of absolute resilience. They are the physical proof that you survived the worst storms the world could throw at you, and that you have earned the right to lie in this grass and taste the sweet flavor of total peace. You do not have to hide your wounds from the light anymore, and you do not have to use them as a reason to keep your guard up. You let the warm afternoon heat sink deep into your chest, filling the empty spaces where the old guilt used to live with a bright, clean sense of self-acceptance. You are here, you are alive, and you are entirely worthy of the quiet safety that surrounds you in this hidden meadow. You lie there in the soft green clover, watching the golden tips of the seed heads dance in the slow breeze above your face. The minutes move past without any hurry, a beautiful, unmeasured flow of time that belongs entirely to your recovery. The warrior has finally found the ultimate sanctuary, not by conquering a new kingdom, but by forgiving himself and allowing his own soul to come completely at rest. You draw in a deep, long breath of the sweet-smelling earth, letting the air ground you in the absolute safety of the now, completely whole, beautifully repaired, and locked in the perfect, healing embrace of Vinland. The long, peaceful afternoon slowly begins to turn, and the bright blue dome of the sky starts to change its colors. As you lie perfectly still in the deep grass of the Vinland meadow, the warm sun begins its slow descent toward the western ocean. The brilliant light that filled the field for hours softens now, turning into a rich, heavy shade of deep gold. This golden light washes across the tops of the amber stalks above your face, making the entire meadow look like a sea of gentle fire swaying in the evening breeze. The long shadows of the grass blades stretch out across your chest and face, drawing cool, dark lines over your skin that contrast beautifully with the fading heat of the day. The world around you begins to slow down even further, preparing itself for the quiet arrival of the night, and your heart moves right along with it, becoming completely light and unburdened. As the sun dips closer to the far edge of the sea, the colors of the upper air undergo a stunning slow-motion transformation. The bright, endless azure straight overhead begins to deepen, turning into a profound, cool indigo. Along the western horizon, where the great water meets the sky, a magnificent band of soft violet, pale pink, and deep orange opens up, casting a gentle, colored glow across the entire landscape. The tips of the golden seed heads dance softly against this shifting backdrop, looking like tiny, dark silhouettes bowing to the rhythm of the evening air. The beauty of this twilight is entirely quiet and undemanding. It does not look for praise, and it does not try to hold on to its own glory. It simply flows from one shade to the next with a smooth, mechanical grace that has been repeated since the beginning of time. You watch these changes with wide, relaxed eyes, losing yourself completely in the vast, colorful expanse above you. With the shifting of the light, the ambient sounds of the meadow undergo a noticeable change as well. The high, lazy calls of the daytime birds fade away entirely, replaced by the deep, soothing silence of the oncoming dusk. The wind, which had been blowing in large, continuous waves from the western ocean, begins to drop its heavy momentum, settling into a soft, cool whisper that barely stirs the roots of the grass around your shoulders. The only sound that remains constant is the distant, muffled thud of the ocean swell hitting the stone foundations of the cliff far below. This low, heavy pulse feels even more prominent now that the rest of the world has grown quiet. It hits the rocks with a slow, mechanical regularity, an ancient heartbeat that measures out the passing of the evening minutes without any sense of hurry or stress. The rhythmic sigh of the retreating water sounds like a long collective breath of relief, encouraging your own lungs to slow down and match its eternal tempo. The cool air of the evening begins to pull down at the root level, brushing gently against your forehead and cheeks. This cool touch is incredibly refreshing, acting like a clean cloth wiping away the last remaining traces of the daytime heat from your skin. The rich, complex scent of the sun-warmed earth changes too, becoming sharper and sweeter as the night dew begins to settle on the dry clover and the crushed grass stems. You draw this cool, damp air deep into your chest, feeling it circulate through your body like a clean, purifying stream. Every breath you take feels lighter than the one before it, as if the very air of Vinland is stripping away the final, stubborn layers of your old identity. The memories of who you used to be, the battles you fought, and the long miles you walked have no weight left in this twilight space. They have turned into nothing more than thin, harmless smoke, completely dissolving into the darkening air above the meadow. A profound sense of completion settles into your bones as the darkness begins to gather in the corners of the field. You realize that you have successfully reached the end of a long, difficult day and the end of an even longer, more difficult journey. There are no more tasks left for you to complete before the night falls, no more decisions that must be made, and no more horizons that you need to watch for danger. The world has tucked itself into bed, and you are completely permitted to rest along with it, safe under the protective canopy of the tall grass. The ground beneath your back remains perfectly solid and unwavering, an old friend that has held you up through the entire afternoon and will continue to hold you safe through the darkness of the oncoming night. You are completely taken care of, completely protected, and entirely free to let yourself disappear into the quiet landscape. The light continues to fade, the deep gold turning into a soft, dusky purple that wraps the entire meadow in a gentle visual silence. The boundaries between your body and the earth beneath you begin to feel beautifully blurred, as if you are melting right down into the roots of the grass and becoming a permanent part of this peaceful land. Your mind is completely clear, stripped of all words, all plans, and all worries, leaving behind only a pure, simple awareness of the present moment. You lie there in the cool clover, letting your eyes gently close as the final rays of the sun disappear below the sea. Your heart is perfectly light, your spirit is entirely at peace, and you are locked in the quiet, unbroken safety of the twilight. The twilight completely fades now, and the soft purple sky deepens into a vast, silent night filled with 1,000 tiny stars. As you lie perfectly still in the deep heart of the Vinland meadow, the narration of the world begins to slow down to a near whisper, creating massive, heavy spaces of beautiful silence between every single thought. The active mind, which spent a lifetime analyzing, protecting, and planning, finally runs out of words completely. The concepts of yesterday and tomorrow dissolve entirely into the dark, cool air, leaving absolutely nothing behind but the simple physical reality of your body resting on the earth. There are no more stories to tell, no more lessons to learn, and no more memories that need to be replayed. The long journey of the warrior has reached its absolute definitive end point, and the only thing that remains in this sacred space is the pure, unbroken essence of the present moment. In the vast spaces of silence that stretch out between your heartbeats, the external world and your internal space begin to blend together into one single rhythm. You can no longer tell where your own body ends and where the earth beneath you begins. You have become as still and as permanent as the ancient stone foundations of the land itself. The wind above your head has dropped down to a faint, ghostly sigh, a tiny movement of air that barely brushes against the very tips of the dark grass stalks. This soft friction sounds like a distant, comforting whisper from an old friend, confirming that your safety is absolute and permanent. Through the quiet air, the steady low thud of the ocean waves hitting the rocks below the cliff continues its eternal mechanical cycle. It is a slow rhythmic pulse that does not change, a continuous wave of sound that pulls all your remaining thoughts out into the deep, dark belly of the Western Sea. Your breathing naturally slows down to match this heavy, eternal tempo of the wind and the waves. Each time your chest rises, you draw in the cool, damp fragrance of the night dew, the clean scent of wild clover, and the sharp tang of the distant salt water. Each time your chest falls, you let go of the very idea of being a separate person. Your exhalations become long, quiet sighs that merge directly with the gentle rush of the retreating tide, sliding down the dark rocks and disappearing into the infinite deep. There is absolutely no hurry in this movement, no effort required, and no resistance left in your muscles. The lungs expand and contract on their own, a simple, beautiful mechanism of life that operates in perfect harmony with the natural world around you. You are no longer a fighter trying to survive the elements. You are the wind, you are the grass, and you are the sea. The stillness in your limbs becomes absolute, a heavy, comfortable weight that anchors you deep into the protective embrace of the soil. The old aches in your joints and the phantom tightness behind your eyes have completely vanished, washed away by the slow, cooling tide of the oncoming night. The dark canopy of the tall grass closes over your face like a soft velvet blanket, shutting out the rest of the universe and keeping you perfectly safe within this private sanctuary. The stars above flash silently in the deep indigo void, a massive, unblinking audience that looks down on your rest without any judgment or expectation. The world is completely quiet now, the land is entirely at peace, and your spirit is beautifully, perfectly light. There is nothing left to guard, there is no one left to answer to, and there is nowhere else in this wide world that you need to go. Slowly, the final remnants of awareness begin to drift away from your mind, like tiny sparks of a dying campfire floating up into the night air and disappearing into the darkness. The line between being awake and falling into a deep, dreamless sleep completely vanishes. The thoughts dissolve entirely, leaving behind only the steady rhythmic sound of your own breath, matching the ancient cadence of the Vinland Ocean. The final victory is here, found not in the shouting of a crowded hall or the glory of a kingdom, but in the absolute, beautiful silence of a soul that has finally allowed itself to stop fighting and come completely home. You let go of the last anchor of control, sinking down into the warm, dark depth of perfect rest, entirely safe, completely whole, and locked in the eternal, peaceful embrace of the land and the sea.